This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Hey, welcome to Hot Take Reaction, the show where I react to the hot takes that you guys drop in the comment section. A ton of takes to get into. It was a fun and interesting week for videos. The first video is the Browns need to, these players, the Browns want to leave the AFC North. A fun video about who could possibly be leaving. This comment from WWZ says Deshaun's contract per year is no different than any other experienced quarterbacks, except for and lower than some. The only thing that's unique is his guarantee. Does anyone think Josh Allen will be cut, or Lamar Jackson, or Pat Mahomes? Of course not. The challenge with Deshaun is not his contract, it's his play so far. And his injury history has to learn how to protect himself, and they'll think he'll be fine. Chase could be $35 million per contract. No way they let Chase walk. Yeah, so I think you bring up a great point. I think the hysteria around Deshaun Watson's contract would be better framed about, can Deshaun Watson stay healthy, and does his play translate long enough to be able to make that deal worthwhile? Because money-wise, it's not that much. You're going to have quarterbacks in the next couple of weeks probably get close to $300 million. Like, I think Brock Purdy's probably going to be the first $300 million man at the quarterback position. And you also make another great point that most of these quarterbacks are pretty much on guaranteed deals because they're not going to get released anytime soon. And the guarantees really only start to matter once a player gets cut. So, yeah, I think these are all good points. I think, yeah, Deshaun and his contract, if he plays well, it's a bargain, right? If he starts to play at a top 5 level, then that contract becomes a bargain. If he just plays at a kind of Pro Bowl level, that contract is still fine. It's about $46 million. That's what Kyler Murray's getting paid per year. That's fine. You know, it's all about, can he stay healthy and what level of play can he maintain when he's out there. I think that there's reason to believe that he could be good. I think there's reason to be concerned about Deshaun Watson. I think the issues that you have with Deshaun going forward are his ability to stay healthy. I think the reasons to be excited is that physically he still has all of the tools that made him special in 2020, and we've seen those flash recently. You know, we've seen the dime dropping throwing ability by him. We've seen the ability to run. We've seen the ability to break sacks. Like, we know that it's still there. He has the ability to kind of live up to all that potential. It's just, can he stay healthy long enough to do so is the important part. As far as Jamar Chase not going anywhere, yeah, they're not going to let Jamar Chase go. T. Higgins is going to be interesting to see what they do, right? Because they can keep T. Higgins. The Bengals can definitely keep T. Higgins, and it will be doable with the salary cap. The issue with keeping T. Higgins is that that's going to be expensive with cash. And the question is, do the Bengals have enough cash? Are they cash rich as an organization enough to be able to keep T. Higgins, right? And if they can't keep T. Higgins, then we're going to kind of know what the book is going to be on the Cincinnati Bengals, because that's going to be something that limits their championship potential if they're going to have to play these cash poor games in order to build around Joe Burrow's contract. If they keep T. Higgins, then maybe they're going in a new direction. They're going to be willing to spend more cash, and the Bengals are going to be a bit more of a threat. But how they handle this T. Higgins situation, if they just try to trade him and get rid of his contract, if they don't try to give him a long-term deal, then I think that that kind of points to what the Bengals' Achilles heel might be. And it's kind of what it's always been with the Cincinnati Bengals, is that they just don't got that much cash like that. The next comment comes from Michael, who says, can you please explain the difference between the Browns cap situation and the Saints? They seem to be the team that I hear most described in cap hell. Would love to know if it's true, or is it a media narrative like the Browns? Thanks for Europe. Now, I'm not an expert about the New Orleans Saints, right? I don't really follow them in the day-to-day. What I do know is that the Browns are willing to spend a lot of cash to maintain their low salary cap numbers despite spending a ton of cash. And they're willing to let some cap roll over every year, right? I think the Browns probably do a better job of managing their cap situation than the New Orleans Saints. But again, New Orleans probably is just going to do a million restructures. They're going to restructure Derek Carr's contract. They're going to restructure Alvin Kamara's contract. I don't know if Mike Thomas still can have his contract restructured. Feels like it's been a while since we talked about him. But they'll restructure things to keep the players that they want, release some players around the edges, and handle things like that. I think their situation is a little bit more severe because they haven't managed it as well. They haven't kept that flexibility, the ability. Like the Browns, when they clear out $60 million of cap space in a couple weeks, right? And we're gonna find out about it. You're gonna see the reports. The Browns clear out this cap space. They have the 10th most or whatever cap space in the NFL. And people are gonna be like, oh, why? How does that happen? The reason the Browns are able to maintain that flexibility is that they don't spend all $60 million of that. They usually spend about half of it. They leave about the other half to go into cap rollover so they could save more money on the next year of contracts, and they manage things like that. So, it depends on how teams are managing their cap situations. The Browns are spending a ton of money, but they're really managing it well with how they're spending money, and they have an owner who's cash rich. So they're able to kind of do these things and string these things out longer because it makes more sense for them when it comes to the salary cap game that they're playing. I hope that was a adequate enough explanation. And if you have more questions, please ask Jack Duffin on Twitter. He will give you a better explanation than I can. The Browns, who will get extended soon, in my opinion, my guy Michael Serkey says, when you listen to what other NFL players say about JOK, it reinforces the kind of player he is. I have great respect for him and believe he is one of the better players in the game. Yeah, man, they really do believe in his ability. Like, he has this instinctive ability, and I'm not comparing the level or the ceiling of his play to Troy Polamalu, but it reminds me of how Troy just kind of knew. Right? Like, I don't know if JOK is studying super hard because he just seems like he's always had great instincts. And not to say that he doesn't study, do his film work. I'm pretty sure he does. But, it feels like a lot of his best plays are just straight off instinct. Like, he just has these amazing instincts for the game. And he's just able to get to the ball so quickly because it's like he does stuff so fast that it doesn't make sense that he's processing it. Like, he's getting there so fast that it's like he just felt it, right? And that's why his average depth of tackle is less than 2 yards. He's a hell of a playmaker. And, Jim Schwartz talked about him figuring out this element of it is that when he does go instinct and he guesses something wrong and it leads to a big play like Brevin Jordan scoring a 70-yard touchdown in the playoff game, he doesn't let that destroy him for the rest of the game. He still gets himself back in the game, which is a key thing because sometimes JOK would make a mistake and then that mistake would just snowball into so many other things. But if he has a good lock on that, I mean, the sky's the limit on the type of player he could be. I loved him coming out of Notre Dame, and I think he's going to be good for the Browns going forward. I hope they extend him. My guy Mike says, I agree with you 100% on Nick Chubb comments. He is a proven commodity. His work ethic is shining example of all Browns players, staff, and fans. He is literally the new and updated version of Jim Brown. Wow, that's high praise. Barry will build a contract to pay him out now, plus some possible injuries or off the field to keep him part of the Browns family. And there should be, should there be a career-ending injury, God forbid. Yeah, again, the issue that I have with how people talk about Nick Chubb is that they're talking about him in the same lens as they talk about other running backs. But he's not any running back, right? Like you talk about dudes like Nick Chubb differently. Some of this stuff just doesn't matter as much because the player has proven himself to be an outlier. And I think that's the main crux of what I want to get to is that we get used to, especially like when we're deep in our analytic bags, we get so used to talking about players and how they perform against the average and how the average sum of player kind of usually reacts to these certain situations, like getting older, or having an injury. And yes, the average running back's career would be in question right now, but Nick Chubb has consistently been a outlier his entire career. So I don't know if averages are a good barometer for what a dude who's proven to be a outlier can do physically. So, I continue to give Nick Chubb the benefit of the doubt because he's proven himself to continuously be a outlier, right? If he were somebody who had been average his whole career or slightly above average or close to average, then yeah, I think these assumptions people are making make sense. But he's a consistent outlier throughout his career. Like when Myles Garrett turns 35, I'm not really going to compare him to the average edge rusher that's 35 because that's Myles Garrett. He's an outlier. The same applies for Nick Chubb. Adam Does Stuff says, interesting to me that Amari Cooper was mentioned for similar reasons to Nick Chubb. He wasn't injured, however, couldn't extending him hit a lower cap while also provide financial security to him, just the same as Nick Chubb. Here's the difference with Amari Cooper and Nick Chubb. One, Amari Cooper's owed significantly more money, $23 million this year, $25 next year, compared to Nick Chubb, who's probably never going to get more than $15, $16 million a year. So the money equation is not the same for those two. It's about a $10 million difference because they play different positions. The other thing that I find different about Amari Cooper's situation is that, let's say the Browns end 2024 and they're not thrilled with the quarterback position, then Amari Cooper immediately becomes expendable, right? Amari Cooper only makes sense for this team as long as Deshaun Watson is still seen as a viable franchise quarterback. So right now, they see him as a viable franchise quarterback. They will have Amari Cooper there, but the second they don't, it doesn't make sense to have Amari Cooper here. So I think that's where they'll be at with that whole conversation. Thank you for the question, Adam. What is Deshaun Watson's potential in 2024? Is it up or down? Face Disabler says, one of the things that's lost in how our offense looked last year versus this new look is if Chubb returns to form and we have a strong run game to lean, it could mask some of the growing pains of the new offense. And I would take it a step further. It can not only just mask some of the growing pains of a new offense, it can enhance a new offense because you have that run game element in there. If Nick Chubb can return to form, if this run game can be something that can continue to be leaned upon with how good this defense is, it's going to make Deshaun Watson, when he has to manage a game, it's going to make his life a lot easier on that front. And it's going to make his life a lot easier if you just need to start making plays, because I talked about this. The one reason why I think running backs are a little undervalued is because a great running back like Nick Chubb is somebody who lowers your barrier to executing a play well. And what creates momentum? What creates energy on a football field? And that is execution, right? When you execute well, you create energy, right? You get a 5-yard run. Now your offensive line is a little bit more juiced up, right? You get another 5-yard run. You moving downfield. Now everybody's like, yeah, we going downfield. And now everybody has more energy. When you have more energy, you tend to execute better. You tend to execute at a higher level. And the more plays you can complete, the more quick throws or the quick passes you can get, the more rhythm you can create, the better the offense is going to look. One of the issues that the Browns offense had and why it felt like it was so stop-start throughout the whole year is because they couldn't have a run game, which means when it's first down and they need to get 5 yards to keep that drive going, they can't build that momentum. So if you get a drop pass on second down, that's it. Boom, momentum's dead. Now you're trying to will 10 yards on a third down out of nowhere. And God forbid if you get a penalty, a pre-snap penalty that brings you back 5 to 10 yards. Having Nick Chubb lowers your barrier of execution to create momentum. So it's easier to have sustained drives. It's easier to have longer drives. It's harder for you to go 3 and out when you have a run game there because it's easier to create that energy on the football field that's created by consistent execution. I think that's one of the most underrated things about what a great running back can do to you, especially if they're kind of kept in the game plan, not overused, right? Not running them 40, 30 times, but when you keep them as a consistent part of the offense and you run them consistently, I think that really does help start the engine for an offense. Like, think of a running back as something that could start your car, right? If your battery's dead. I don't know if they do that anymore, but he's like a jumper where it's like, okay, the offense can get jumping now because Nick Chubb can break off a 10-yard run at any point, which is going to get the momentum going, which is going to get the energy up, which is going to get this team to execute better, which is going to get defenses to kind of be more frantic, which is going to allow you to execute at an even higher level. So that's why I think Nick Chubb brings to the offense, and if he's playing at the peak levels, then you're going to be able to have that. And then if you can have a good passing attack on top of that, then yeah, man, it really starts to get dangerous. My guy Joe Munn says, screw potential. How about stay on the field and play at a better than replacement level? Then we can talk. Also, zero guarantee that Chubb is even ready to play at the start of the season. I don't know why people are talking about him coming back from this injury with no issues. Well, I think people are giving Nick Chubb the benefit of the doubt because not only has Nick Chubb come back from an injury like this before, but he's Nick Chubb. He's kind of earned that. So I think it's fair for people to give him the benefit of the doubt. And as far as Deshaun Watson's play, I think when he was on the field, he was certainly above a replacement level of play. I think reducing him to not being replacement level is kind of silly, given that they had a plus 63 point differential, given that most of the games he started and finished were blowouts. Cincinnati, Tennessee, Arizona, all blowouts. And then the one game that he won that wasn't a blowout was on the road versus Baltimore, where you made a 14-point comeback. Calling somebody who was able to be a key part of that a replacement level player, I think, is a mischaracterization of what we saw and inaccurate at the end of the day. So I had to disagree with you, Joe. Anthony says this man is making more guaranteed money than any QB in the NFL. I expect him to bring us championships. Then he gave up all them first-round picks, but after 2 seasons of below-average play, lost all confidence in him. Make sure we have a good backup plan, Cleveland. Again, I think it's fair to feel this way. My only question about this comment is, why does it matter what his guaranteed money is so much? Like, that's one thing that really doesn't affect us, but a lot of people tend to bring up. I could care less about Deshaun Watson's guaranteed money. Doesn't really affect me. The Browns have found a way to manage the contract well, and they haven't lost anybody because of this contract, right? If we were in a situation where we couldn't bring back Grant Delpit because of that contract, or we couldn't bring back Denzel Ward or extend Wyatt Teller because of that contract, then I would understand why we would care so much about the guaranteed money. But when you start to cry, well, not cry, but complain about the guaranteed money, I want to ask a serious question. Like, who has the Browns lost on their roster because they're paying Deshaun Watson? You can argue about the draft picks all you want. The Browns been able to add Martin Emerson and DeJuan Jones, who are first round level talents. So you haven't really suffered that much in the new talent part of this. But like, the Browns have been able to bring in free agents every year of that contract. They've been able to retain guys past 2025. So really the question is, what about that contract has really cost the Browns anything? Or is it just kind of talk at this point? Is it all hypothetical? It's really a serious question, because as much as I hear about the contract and why it should be a problem for the Browns, I don't really see people pointing to specific things that has happened because of that contract that have hurt the Browns. Would love to find out if there is. But y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.